It was a cold, winter night, with snowflakes falling silently all around. Everything seemed peaceful. I was just an innocent young girl back then, filled with curiosity about the world. It was late, and I was alone, waiting for the bus. After a long wait, the bus I needed finally arrived, and I quickly got on. As cookies, suddenly a strange scene caught my eye. There were two tall men, one on each side, supporting a woman dressed in white. A feeling of unease washed over me. It wasn't the suspicion of encountering robbers, but rather something about that scene sent shivers down my spine. When the woman got on the bus, her feet slid along the edge of the step as if she were floating upwards. I found my seat on the bus, right in front of those three people. Of course, I had arranged it that way on purpose. I couldn't resist the strong curiosity within me. I couldn't resist stealing another glance towards them. The woman's eyes were incredibly large and beautiful. Yet before I could appreciate their allure, I was suddenly overcome by an unprecedented sense of terror. Her eyes, unmoving, stared directly at me, emitting a chilling light. Her long black hair almost obscured her face, but her eyes remained crystal clear. I took a sharp breath and quickly turned away, realizing that my shirt was drenched in sweat. Was it just an illusion? No, it wasn't. She was looking at me. She was definitely looking at me. Could it be that she was angry at my audacity? The more I thought about it, the more uncomfortable I became. So I moved to a different seat and tried to calm down. After a while, my nerves settled a bit, but my restless ease began to itch again. I couldn't resist stealing a third glances at her. Oh my God! I almost screamed. Like clockwork, everything was the same as a few minutes ago. The woman was still staring at me with her large, cold eyes, showing no sign of shifting her gaze despite my change in position. I couldn't suppress the overwhelming sense of fear anymore. It felt like a heavy iron ball bouncing within my chest. I dashed toward the door as the bus reached my stop, determined to leave this cursed place immediately. I couldn't bear to imagine what might happen next. As soon as my feet hit the ground, I nearly stumbled out of the bus. Without looking back, I ran as fast as I could. The feeling that something was monitoring my every move hung over me. Perhaps it was those mysterious eyes again. "Hey, miss," a deep, masculine voice suddenly called out. I paused for a moment, hesitated, and turned around. It was a man dressed as a policeman. "Miss, did you just witness something strange?" he asked. Yes, I replied, not caring about my exhaustion, wanting answers. "Well, it's because the woman on the bus, she's a dead person." It was a snowy night in our secluded Appalachian village. Despite the vast area, we had only about 50 households. Cut off from much of the outside world, our lives were quiet and isolated, with the rare sound of a truck engine being a novelty. Our village was spread out across different mountain peaks, resembling stars scattered in the sky. Only from the highest points could you catch glimpses of the distant flickering lights from our scattered homes. Old trucks and sometimes horseback were our only means of transport. It was a long and arduous journey to the nearest town to buy supplies. On one cold evening, when I was 17, my father and I were returning from a day of hunting. From afar, we saw a disheveled woman sitting in front of our house. Her presence was unusual, as strangers seldom wander into our village. This was the beginning of a series of strange events. Assuming she was lost, my father, always the kind-hearted soul, offered to guide her to a nearby village. But she revealed that she was from the city, searching for relatives, exhausted from her travels. Despite her peculiar behavior and the eerie way she spoke, my father gave her water. As he handed her the glass, he got a clear look at her face. It was a haunting sight. Part of her face appeared severely burnt, and her eyes were disturbingly serpentine. My father was so shocked that he dropped the glass. She declined another glass, saying she had to continue her journey. Before leaving, she claimed to be knowledgeable in fortune-telling and ominously predicted a calamity for my father at the age of 70. She vanished into the night as quickly as she appeared. That winter was one of the harshest we'd ever experienced, with relentless snowfalls bearing the mountain paths. My father, ever the optimist, believed the deep snow promised a bountiful harvest next year. I, however, couldn't shake off the cold that seemed to seep into my bones. One evening, after a simple dinner of stew and bread, my father was knitting warm hats by the lantern light, a skill passed down through generations. I lay in bed leafing through an old Western comic book, our only form of entertainment in a house devoid of modern conveniences. The silence of the night was shattered by a series of loud knocks. Oddly, our usually alert dog, Big Black, remained undisturbed. Cautiously, I opened the door to find an elderly man standing there. He looked weather-beaten and worn, with hollow eyes and an ashen complexion that gave him an almost ghostly appearance. Something about him felt unsettling, sending a shiver down my spine. My father, after a moment of hesitation, invited the man in. A cold wind swept through the room as he entered, intensifying the eerie atmosphere. My father, trying to be hospitable, asked me to make a trip to town to fetch some distilled liquor and snacks. They planned to talk through the night. Reluctantly, I set off on the treacherous snowy path, feeling an unshakable sense of foreboding. The journey was ominous, with the howling wind and thick snow creating an almost funeral-like silence. Appalachian folklore, rich with tales of spirits and unexplained phenomena, played in my mind, heightening my anxiety. Upon reaching town and acquiring the liquor and snacks, I hurried back, the looming mountains appearing more sinister in the darkness. As I neared home, a shadowy figure atop a peak caught my eye. It seemed to be moving, an impossible sight on such a frigid night. Dismissing it as a trick of the mind, I pressed on, eager to return to the safety of home. However, as I passed beneath the figure, a chilling voice whispered through the air, calling out Liam Pritchard. My father's name. Panic gripped me, and I pedaled faster, desperate to reach home. Arriving to a gently falling snow and an open front door, Big Black greeted me, cheerfully oblivious to my dread. Inside, I found my father motionless on his bed. No matter how much I called to him, he remained unresponsive. A devastating realization hit me as I checked for his breath. He was gone. The stranger, Liam Pritchard, had disappeared without a trace. On that very night, my father's 70th birthday, the mysterious woman's prophecy had come true. Was Liam Pritchard a real person or something otherworldly? Even now, years later, the memory of that snowy, fateful night sends chills through me, leaving more questions than answers. As the chilly winter air set in, I sat at my desk, sipping coffee, reminiscing about a spine-chilling incident from my childhood that nearly cost me my life. My curiosity, always my guiding star, had once led me into the jaws of danger. I was 11 years old, frequently staying at my grandmother's Victorian-style house while my parents were on business trips. Her house was a quaint, old structure with a separate kitchen wing. On those frosty winter nights, the fireplace in the living room was our source of warmth. The steam from the kitchen would create mesmerizing frost patterns on the windows, resembling delicate ice flowers. I would spend hours admiring these designs, their intricate beauty captivating my young mind. This is where my eerie tale begins. Naish, my grandmother, a keen card player, often engaged in games that lasted all night. The adults, immersed in their entertainment, paid little attention to me, leaving me to find my own amusement. Drawing on the frosty window became my favorite pastime. One particular night, as the adults were absorbed in their game, I found myself alone in the living room, standing on a stool, face pressed against the cold glass, tracing the frost patterns. Outside, our backyard, filled with firewood and a small home garden, was dimly lit to ward off potential intruders. Through the frosted glass, the shadows outside seemed to dance in the faint light. And that night, as I drew on the window, a shadow slowly approached, forming a face-like outline on the glass. Thinking it was a visitor, I called out, "Someone's at the door." The adults, startled from their game, rushed to check. My grandmother, peering outside, found no one. Considering it could have been a prowler, she searched the backyard, but to no avail. The incident was soon forgotten. But I was certain of what I saw and became more intrigued by the frost patterns, eagerly waiting for another glimpse of that mysterious shadow. Days went by without any further sightings, and my interest eventually waned. However, the true terror unfolded one night when everyone was asleep. Waking up to use the bathroom, I made my way through the silent house. The moonlight cast a glow on the frost-covered window, revealing the beautiful patterns once more. After returning inside, I noticed 2 handprints on the glass, as if someone had just touched it. Fear gripped me. The house was eerily silent. I quickly closed the door and crawled back into bed, but the cold dread I felt was inescapable. That night, I learned true fear isn't about screaming or running. It's the heart-pounding, ear-ringing paralysis. I lay there, hearing faint, rustling sounds from the backyard, growing closer, as if something or someone was there. My consciousness faded in and out. I vaguely remember being surrounded by concerned voices, my grandfather suggesting a hospital visit. I had been found unresponsive that morning and was later diagnosed with sleepwalking episodes. On one such night, while the family was engrossed in their card game, I unknowingly drifted off on the cozy couch. The room, crowded and stuffy, led my grandmother to open a window slightly for ventilation. Lost in their game, they didn't notice as I sleepwalked towards the window, pressing my body against it, as if drawn to something outside. My aunt, facing me, saw my odd behavior, but assumed I was merely awake. It was only when I started banging my head against the window that she intervened, pulling me away and securing the window. The next day brought a chilling revelation. My grandmother held me close, offering comforting words instead of her usual red string. Ensuring me of her protection, I lay weakly in her arms, feeling vulnerable and protected at the same time. As time passed, my sleepwalking episodes evolved into terrifying nightmares. I would dream of a boy standing at my bedroom door, beckoning me with a chilling, "Come, come." Each night, he crept closer, eventually climbing onto my bed, his icy touch paralyzing me. I was trapped in these nightmares, unable to scream or move. My aunt shared a disturbing observation from the night of my sleepwalking episode. When she had carried me back to bed and was closing the window, she had seen a little boy outside, his expression angry, arms reaching out as if to grab something. But in the blink of an eye, he vanished. Fearing ridicule, she kept this sighting to herself. The strange occurrences escalated until my aunt felt compelled to share her experience with my grandmother. Initially, my grandmother thought I was suffering from night terrors and tried various methods to ward off any malevolent spirits. However, as my condition worsened, she sought help from a local expert in spiritual matters. Years later, my grandmother confided in me the full extent of those terrifying events. She revealed that the spirit of a young boy who had died from exposure in the cold was haunting me. If it hadn't been for my aunt's disclosure, my fate might have been much grimmer. This encounter with the unknown left a deep imprint on my psyche. The chilling touch, the silent beckoning, and the nightmares that followed have never truly left me. Even now, on cold winter nights, I find myself staring at frost patterns on windows, half expecting to see that boy's face, beckoning me once more into the unknown. I've always been drawn to the thrill of skiing, the rush of the wind against my face, the freedom of gliding down snowy slopes. My name is Jack Turner, and skiing isn't just a hobby for me, it's a passion. What started as a perfect day on the slopes quickly turned into a nightmare I'll never forget. The weather turned treacherous, and I found myself alone, with a twisted ankle, stranded in the desolate wilderness. The sky was a blanket of darkness, and my phone, my only lifeline, had no signal. I had no choice but to wait for dawn. "Are you okay?" A voice pierced the silence. Startled, I looked up to see a woman in white, her beauty almost ethereal against the snowy backdrop. I hurt my foot," I stammered. She offered to help me to her cabin for shelter. Grateful and relieved, I accepted her assistance, limping alongside her. Her cabin was a small, rustic haven amidst the vast expanse of snow. Once inside, I had a chance to look at her closely. Dressed in white, her long black hair framed a delicate oval face. Her presence was captivating, yet something about her seemed out of place in this frozen wilderness. "Why are you here? In this desolation?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. She smiled wryly. "Sure, aren't you here skiing at this time too?" Her response was simple, yet profound. As she treated my injury, I found myself drawn to her gentle demeanor suiting my pain and fear. "I can't thank you enough," I said gratefully. "I thought I'd be lost out here." Her mood shifted suddenly, her voice taking on a sinister tone. "Do you really think you're safe here?" She laughed, a chilling sound that echoed off the cabin walls. In that moment, her appearance changed drastically. Her once youthful face now sagged with wrinkles, her eyes bulging grotesquely. She lunged at me, her fingers twisted like claws. A sense of panic surged through me as I screamed for help, struggling to free myself from her grasp. "You can't escape," she hissed. "Now that you've seen my true form, there's no leaving this place." "Why did you help me then?" I cried out, terror gripping my heart. Her laugh was now a horrifying cackle. "A dead man is of no use to me. I need you to restore my youth. Your life is my elixir." I begged for mercy, tears streaming down my face, but it was futile. 3 days later, as another snowstorm blanketed the mountains, I watched my friends skiing in the distance, my heart heavy with sorrow. They couldn't see me. I was but a lost soul, forever wandering the snowy wilderness. The Snow Woman is a creature from various legends, known in Japanese folklore as Yuki Onna. She's a spectral figure, beautiful yet terrifying, often appearing in snowy regions to ensnare unwary travelers. In the legends, she's known to freeze her victims with a kiss, draining their life force. This tale is my account, a haunting experience that has left me trapped between worlds. To those who venture into the snow, be wary, for the Snow Woman may still wander, seeking her next unwitting victim. Global Beauty Corp, a leading company known for its high-quality facial masks, was on a rapid growth trajectory. Eager to expand its team, they welcomed several new employees, including Emily Stone. "Hello, everyone. I'm Emily Stone, 20 years old, originally from..." Emily introduced herself on stage with the other newcomers. They were promptly assigned to the warehouse by their supervisor. You'll be in charge of inspecting the quantity and quality of our shipments, Supervisor Johnson, a middle-aged man with strikingly youthful skin, told Emily. His appearance, defying his age, left a lasting impression on her. "Do you get it?" he asked, noticing her distraction. "Yes, Supervisor Johnson," Emily quickly responded, snapping back to reality. Settling into her role, Emily grew accustomed to the workflow. One Monday, she observed Supervisor Johnson personally inspecting a new batch of goods, always asking others to leave the warehouse during this process. Despite her inquiries, he brushed them off, telling her to focus on her duties. Driven by curiosity, Emily asked some veteran employees about these mysterious shipments. They revealed that these specific deliveries began after her arriving only on Mondays, and seemed to be a crucial factor in the company's recent revenue surge. "I have to know what's in those shipments," Emily thought, her curiosity piqued. That evening, a news report about a string of missing girls caught her attention, but she shrugged it off as just another unfortunate societal issue. The following Monday, as usual, Supervisor Johnson conducted his private inspection. After he left, Emily entered to check the remaining goods and found an unbranded face mask on the floor. Intrigued and assuming it was accidentally dropped by Johnson, she pocketed it for a closer look later. At home, Emily examined the mask, finding its texture unnaturally soft and smooth, almost lifelike, without any labels or instructions, and the packaging plain, she noticed a strange phenomenon. Under certain angles of light, the mask seemed to briefly turn a vibrant red before returning to its original white color. Dismissing it as fatigue-induced hallucinations, she decided to try the mask that night, especially since she'd run out of her usual skincare products. The mask felt remarkably comfortable, unlike any she had used before. She drifted into a deep sleep, the mask still on her face. The next morning at Global Beauty Corp, Emily was met with stares and whispers. Confused, she asked a colleague, "What's wrong? Why is everyone looking at me?" Emily, you look different today. Did you skip your makeup routine?" her colleague joked, rushing to check. Her reflection, Emily was stunned to see her skin glowing more radiantly than ever, even surpassing her best days with makeup. She wondered if the mysterious mask was behind this transformation. In the days that followed, her skin gradually returned to its normal state, fueling her desire to use the mask again. Despite her repeated attempts, Supervisor Johnson remained tight-lipped about the mask's origin. One late Friday evening, while checking a new shipment, Emily stumbled upon a box marked with a note, "Early Delivery." As she was about to examine its contents, Johnson swiftly intervened, securing the box in his office. After her colleagues left that night, Emily snuck back to Johnson's office, searching for the box. As she rummaged through the office, a chilling voice startled her. Turning around, she faced Supervisor Johnson, who stood over a pile of skin-like sheets on the floor. "Looking for this?" he asked menacingly, gesturing towards the sheets. "Why don't you join the collection?" The next day, Emily didn't show up for work. Johnson casually informed the staff that she had resigned. That evening, as another news report about missing girls aired, viewers remained unaware of the sinister secret lurking within the walls of Global Beauty Corp. The story subtly implies that the mysterious shipments and the missing girls were connected, leaving a haunting implication about the true nature of the beauty industry. That evening, while Snow was having dinner, a news report aired on TV. There have been numerous reports of missing girls in recent weeks. We urge citizens to keep their daughters indoors after dark. Snow shrugged it off, thinking, that's just the way society is. There are all sorts of things happening every day. Soon, another Monday arrived. As usual, Supervisor Wang inspected the first batch of goods. When he came out of the warehouse, Snow entered to inspect the remaining shipments. As she performed her duties, she spotted a face mask on the floor. Picking it up, Snow noticed that the mask had no brand label. It was wrapped in a white package. "I don't remember this kind of mask in the shipments. Who could have left it here? Did Supervisor Wang accidentally drop it while inspecting?" Snow wondered. She placed the mask in her bag, planning to examine it later that evening. Anxiously, Snow spent the day, fearing that Supervisor Wang might notice the missing mask and search the warehouse. However, everything unfolded as usual, and she made it through without incident. In the evening, she eagerly took out the mask and opened the white wrapping. Inside was a mask that bore a striking resemblance to a person's facial features. When Snow held the mask, she felt its texture was unnaturally soft and smooth, like a baby's skin. Looking further into the packaging, there were no instructions or any other information. Under the light, Snow noticed that the white mask seemed to turn a vibrant red, but when she rubbed her eyes and looked again, it was white once more. "Perhaps I'm just tired and imagining things," Snow murmured before heading to the shower. After finishing her shower, Snow was about to apply her usual face mask when she realized she had run out. As someone who valued her appearance, she felt uneasy without a mask. Then, she noticed the mask she had brought back from the company on her desk. "Well, since I don't have any masks left, I might as well give this one a try," Snow said to herself. She applied the mask onto her face, feeling a strange sensation as it made contact with her skin. The craftsmanship and material of the mask seemed different from anything she had ever used, giving a remarkably comfortable sensation. Slowly, Snow drifted to sleep in this unusual state. The next day, when Snow arrived at the office, she noticed everyone was looking at her. "Is there something on my face? Why is everyone staring at me?" Snow asked a colleague, feeling perplexed. "Snow, did you forget to put on makeup today?" her colleague teased. "No, I didn't. I woke up late," and rushed to work without thinking much about my appearance. "What's going on?" Snow replied. You look so beautiful today. Haven't you noticed?" Her colleague continued jesting. Hearing this, Snow quickly took out a small mirror from her bag and glanced at her reflection. To her surprise, her complexion was significantly better than when she wore makeup. Even her previous best days didn't compare. Snow secretly rejoiced, wondering if it was because of the mask she had used the previous night. In the following days, Snow noticed her complexion returning to its original state as she had stopped using the special mask. She longed to regain that transformative effect, but Supervisor Wang refused to share any information regarding the mask, no matter how much Snow asked. One Friday afternoon, while inspecting goods, Snow discovered a box containing unfamiliar items. Attached to the goods was a small note stating, "I delivered the goods early." About to take out the contents, Snow saw Supervisor Wang approaching and quickly snatched the box away. However, instead of taking it for inspection, Supervisor Wang placed the box in his office and left. With a heavy workload, it was already past 8 p.m. when Snow and her colleagues were about to leave for the night. "Oh no! I forgot something. You all go ahead," Snow told her colleagues with an apologetic smile. "All right, take care," her colleagues said as they walked out of the company. Once her colleagues were gone, Snow hurried back upstairs. Where could it be? A woman who happened to be Snow was searching an office as if looking for something desperately. But the woman's attention was suddenly caught by a familiar voice. She turned around to see Supervisor Wang. "Are you looking for this?" Supervisor Wang said unexpectedly, pointing at a bundle of skin-like sheets scattered on the floor. Then, with an eerie laugh, he added, "Come on, become a part of it." The next day, Snow didn't show up for work. Supervisor Wang told everyone that she had resigned. That evening, a news report aired on TV. "There have been numerous reports of missing girls recently. We urge citizens to keep their daughters indoors at night." Tags, ghost story, tale. A haunting encounter on a snowy Christmas Eve, the woman in his eyes. Our winters are bitterly cold, especially around Christmas time. One morning I was out doing some last-minute Christmas shopping when I came across a peculiar man on the street. He was tall, with a bearded face and unkempt hair, clad in an old blue down jacket, sitting on the sidewalk, idly smoking. As I glanced at him curiously, our eyes met. In that moment, whether it was a trick of the light or some illusion, I saw an image of a woman reflected in his right eye. She appeared in her 20s, with long hair, an oval face, and captivating eyes. Her expression carried a hint of sadness, and through the man's gaze, it felt like she was looking right at me. I was frozen in place until my cousin, who was out shopping with me, nudged me back to reality. The man had already looked away. "Hey, did you see that man's eye?" I whispered to my cousin. "Nope, why? Was there something odd?" she replied, distractedly eating some snack. "He had a woman's image in it," I mumbled. She laughed it off, thinking I was imagining things, so I let the topic drop. After finishing our shopping, I asked my cousin to head home without me. I wandered the streets aimlessly, eventually finding myself back where I had seen the man. He was still there, smoking. I approached and squatted beside him. "Hey, man, got a light?" I asked. He handed me his lighter without a word. As I lit my cigarette, I took the chance to look into his eyes again. There it was, a clear image of a woman in his right eye. "You see the woman in my eye? Don't you?" he said, noticing my stare. "Yeah, it's quite a sight," I replied, trying to sound casual. "Interesting, isn't it?" He chuckled, but his laughter had a touch of sorrow. "Because of this, I've lost my job, my friends. People call me a freak, avoid me, but I don't regret it. It's the face of the woman I love." "That's quite a story," I said, intrigued. The man took a slow drag from his cigarette, his breath visible in the cold air. "It started 10 years ago," he began. "I met her on a trip. We fell deeply in love. But on the day I planned to propose, she told me she couldn't be with me. Our worlds were too different." He paused, looking into the distance. "I spent the whole night just looking at her, memorizing her face, but somehow that image got etched in my eye. Since then, people have been scared of me." I couldn't help but study his eye again. The woman's image seemed to shift subtly, her expression changing as if she were alive. "I know it sounds crazy, but sometimes I hear her laugh or sigh," he said, almost whispering. I stood up, a little shaken. "I believe you," I admitted, "but I should get going." As I walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just encountered something extraordinary. The cold in this northern city seemed to seep into your bones, different from the damp chill of my hometown. After Christmas, I visited my girlfriend's family. Despite our love, the differences in our upbringing were stark. I often felt out of place, clumsy in my attempts to fit in. One day, after another awkward meal where I spilled soup, I excused myself for a walk. The snow was falling heavily outside, a white blanket covering the streets. My girlfriend joined me, her hand finding mine in the snowy silence. We ended up at a small cafe. Sitting across from her, with steaming cups of coffee between us, I felt a pang of sadness. "Do you ever regret us being together?" I asked. "A bit," she confessed. "You're different, more carefree. It's hard sometimes." I smiled wryly. "I guess I'm just a misfit." A woman at the next table sighed. "Loving someone from a different world is painful," she said. She looked familiar, with her curly hair and lined face, like the woman from the man's eye. "It's her," I realized, my heart racing. "You're the woman from his eye, My girlfriend looked at me confused. "What are you talking about?" I turned to the woman. "You were in love with a man, but you left him. He's out there, wandering, with your face in his eye." The woman looked lost, troubled. "I can't remember. I knew then that her memory, like her image, was trapped in that man's eye. A love lost, but never forgotten." As we left the cafe, the snow continued to fall gently around us. "Let's head back," my girlfriend suggested, squeezing my hand. "Sure," I agreed, thoughts of the man and the woman still swirling in my head. On our way, my girlfriend asked, "If you were that man, what would you have done?" I pondered for a moment. I would have fought for our love, changed, adapted, whatever it took to be part of her world. But if that still wasn't enough, I trailed off, looking at the snowflakes settling on my gloves. "Then what?" she pressed, her voice tinged with curiosity. "Then I guess, like him, I'd keep her memory, her image, close to me. In my heart, if not in my eyes," I said, trying to lighten the mood. She smiled, a bit sadly. "That's both beautiful and tragic, sir." "Yeah, it is," I agreed. "But love often is, isn't it? A mix of beauty and tragedy." We walked the rest of the way in silence, each lost in our own thoughts, the snow creating a serene white world around us. It was a world where love could be as haunting as the image in a man's eye, and as elusive as a forgotten memory. But in that moment, hand in hand, we were just two people trying to find our way in the complexities of love and life. Every winter in the Alps brings its share of heavy snowfalls, but the first snow always holds a special magic. It descends quietly in the night, casting a serene blanket over the sleeping world. For us, the villagers, this first snowfall heralds the start of the hunting season. Our little town, nestled in the foothills of the Swiss Alps, is a relic of times past, with ancient ruins of city walls that once stood proudly. We're a small community, just 9 households, clustered around the heart of our village, the Mountain Crest Inn. This quaint establishment not only offers shelter to weary travelers, but also serves as the social hub, especially when the hunters gather at the first snow. It was past dinner time, yet the inn was alive with chatter and the clinking of glasses. The snowfall brings the wildlife closer, making it a perfect time for hunting hares, goats, and grouses. The local hunters, familiar with each other's quirks and tales, were all there. So when 2 strangers, city folks by their looks, entered, they drew everyone's attention. The taller of the 2 carried a 7.9 rifle, a bit overkill for our usual game. His companion, with a scarred face and cold eyes, had a double-barreled hunting rifle. We're used to simple wire traps and knives here, not these heavy firearms. Mr. Rogers, the innkeeper, didn't hide his displeasure. "We're out of booze and food," he grumbled. "No matter, we have our own supplies," the scarred man replied coolly, unbothered by the chilly reception. Their gear was extensive, suggesting they were well prepared. After they settled in, Mr. Rogers came back to the common area, visibly disturbed. "Take care in the mountains," he warned us, "and don't stir the snow fairy." A young hunter, curious, asked, "What's a snow fairy, Mr. Rogers?" "It's what we call the snow wolves here," he explained, a hint of fear in his voice. "Anger them, and you'll bring disaster upon yourself. They have a keen sense of smell and never forget a scent." "But they're just beasts, right?" the young hunter pressed. "They bring the snow with them, or so the old tales say. They're more than just wolves," Mr. Rogers said, closing off further questions with a stern look. That winter we only had one snowfall, and it melted away in a week. The two city hunters left the mountains as the snow receded, their backpacks bulging with their catch. When they returned to the inn, Mr. Rogers turned them away, pale and shaking. They hitched a ride on a farm truck, heading to the city, disappearing into the night. The next day, in St. Moritz, a strange tragedy struck. Two men, guests at the Golden Mountain Hotel, were found dead in their room, frozen solid. The scene was surreal. The room was covered in snow, as if a blizzard had raged inside. The furniture, the carpets, even the beds where the men lay, all were blanketed in white. Despite the hotel's central heating, the cold had been relentless, unforgiving. During the investigation, the police made a grim discovery. Among the belongings of the deceased were two wolf carcasses, their fur as white as the snow that had engulfed the room. Rumors began to spread like wildfire. News of this bizarre incident eventually reached us at the Mountain Crest Inn over a month later. The story sent shivers down our spines. "That was the snow fairy," Mr. Rogers murmured to a hushed room, his voice barely above a whisper. "They didn't just kill wolves. They provoked the wrath of the snow fairy." The room fell into a heavy silence. The fire crackled, the only sound in the inn, as we all pondered the fate of those men. As I lay in bed that night, I couldn't help but think about the legend of the snow fairy. In our village, we respect nature, the animals, and the spirits of the mountains. The city hunters had ignored these unspoken rules, and it seemed the snow fairy had exacted a chilling revenge. I drifted off to sleep, the tale of the snow fairy echoing in my mind, a reminder of the respect we owe to the mystical forces of nature. For in the Alps, legends are not just stories. Sometimes they are warnings.